The SPL is back for its third season, and this time they're taking a dive into VGC, which is my wheelhouse this generation. So we decided to join as the Liyue Harbor Glazed Lilligants, and I'm planning to go for the title this time around. I'd like to think I have one of the best drafts, but if you guys want to see what the other coaches drafted, check out all the links below to their channels, as they all make fantastic content, and you guys will get to see the entire coach roster in the description. Also join the server so you guys can claim our coach role and support the Liyue Harbor Glazed Lilligants this season, as I think that we have a run that's going to be one to keep an eye on. With that said though, let's get into the team, which I do have to give a quick shout out to my guy Hopeless, who helped me with all of the drafting. I'm going to link the WBG stuff down below as well, as it's a great VGC Draft League resource for anyone coming from the SPL wondering how you could play a format similar to this. We basically took a lot of the WBG tiers for this, as Hopeless does run that league and also helped with all of our tiering and helped me specifically with drafting this time around. With the third pick overall in the draft out of the 20 coaches, we're going to be going 1 to 20 and then 20 to 1. And overall for our first pick, we somehow got Raging Bull. Now, because of the team name this season, of course, being the Liyue Harbor Glazed Lilligants, we're going to be going with a Genshin Impact theme for our nicknames. So Raiden Shogun will be the nickname for our Raging Bull. Raging Bull is one of the most adaptable Pokemon in VGC Draft, with an incredible item selection such as Booster Energy, Life Orb, Assault Vest, and so many more options. This is one of the most malleable of the Paradox Pokemon in terms of Terra, investments, etc., and it even has a surprisingly varied moveset. While you would typically really like 5 moves on Raging Bull at any given point in Draft League, at the same time, you do have a lot of options for your moveset, and you can tailor it depending on whatever matchup you're fearing the most. I think that Raging Bull is a phenomenal first pick for our team, and I think it really sets a stage for what's to come, as it's not a very hard Pokemon to build around, as it covers a lot of checkboxes for our team overall, offensively, defensively, etc. It's a great support piece with Snarl, it's a great offensive wall breaker for us, and especially in terms of special wall breaking options, there are so few of them in comparison to physical ones in the Scarlet and Violet Pokedex, so this was a phenomenal first way to start off our team. Coming in hot for our second pick, we somehow got another specially offensive win con in terms of Volcanion, which is going to be going by Chevreuse. Now, Volcanion here is a phenomenal pick, and I'm really shocked this actually made it to us. I was talking with a lot of other VGC draft people who were helping me prep for my week 1 and 2 games, and we all kind of agreed that we are very shocked this somehow didn't go to a team round 1, and the fact that it made it to the near end of round 2 really surprised me. This mon was priced at 18 points out of 20, so I get that the price point might have been a little bit of a turnoff, but at the same time though, Volcanion is a very malleable Pokemon, and especially when it comes to things like Terra and its moveset, it is very destructive in most games. Volcanion is a great piece offensively and defensively, similar to Raging Bull, but it has a lot of different things that it does provide, as it's not a setup win con or an option with priority like Raging Bull is, and instead you're going to probably be playing this more as like an Assault Vest piece or a Choice Specs option that could take advantage of a lot of different special attackers due to its fire and water typing. This is also one of the best wall breakers on the board, considering its fire and water stabs are very powerful and very few Pokemon can really actually switch into them. And with 130 special attack, this is going to be a monster into any sun or rain teams, and if you're running a weather like sand or snow, you're not exactly weakening our stab either. Overall, Volcanion is going to be an absolute monster this season, and I think especially with these two Pokemon, we found a perfect way to round them out in a round 3 pick with Alolan Ninetales, which is going to be nicknamed Sitlali this season. Now, Alolan Ninetales is a phenomenal support piece for any sort of setup win con such as Raging Bolt, with Aurora Veil being a really strong move to make sure that any of our teammates are going to be very well off. Alolan Ninetales also gives us a base 109 speed Pokemon, which is a very awkward speed tier to be prepping around. In Draft League, these awkward speed tiers are very important because you want to make sure that your opponent might not necessarily be able to perfectly speed creep you, and making sure that you're 1 or 2 points off on any common speed benchmark such as 110 is a very valuable asset here. Alolan Ninetales also has some Icy Wind support, which is going to be great because Volcanion and Raging Bull are both on the slower end, and despite Raging Bull's priority, that's not going to be useful in every single match. Alolan Ninetales also can be a powerful option of its own, since Blizzard is able to freeze 2 opponents at once now, and we also have Hypnosis, Encore, and Disable for very valuable support outside of just Veil. I feel like a lot of people are going to see Alolan Ninetales and think we have to one-track it with Veil, but I do promise this season we're going to try and bring some very interesting tech that should hopefully win a ton of matches, as this is a very versatile Pokemon, and I'd like to think that it is the piece that truly rounds out this team. Coming in at round 4, I already kind of settled on the fact that most of my roles were already claimed on this team, very much so, but one thing I really did need was a strong physical attacker. So we ended up getting Zhongli or Garchomp. Now for anyone who knows, I don't actually end up using any of the male characters when I do play with Genshin, but I did go with Zhongli because this is my good pal Luxence's favorite character in Genshin, and Lux did actually let us use the logo for this season. Shout out to Lux, this was their former team, but they have since retired from draft, and they knew I was looking for a Genshin Impact logo, so Lux actually had let me inherit the team. So in honor of Lux, of course, I did want to name Garchomp after their favorite character in the game, so Zhongli is here. Zhongli the Garchomp though is going to be a phenomenal option. It is an incredible Swords Dance pick, it is an incredible wall breaker overall, and it's extremely diverse in terms of its offensive and defensive capabilities. Now Garchomp has a lot of different options such as Rocky Helmet with Rough Skin that is great for a lot of physical attackers that might otherwise try and attack into it, and especially with Terra, this can actually form a surprisingly good wall for the team. Though outside of that, it is a great Swords Dance win con that can also boost speed with options like Scale Shot, Loaded Dice. It benefits a ton from the Alolan Ninetales synergy, and these two very much so complement each other, as Alolan Ninetales is a great pick into other Dragon types that might otherwise not necessarily want to take it on. And for any Steel types, we do have, of course, the Garchomp, which is able to absolutely massacre them with moves like Earthquake. The combination of these four is going to be very impossible for most teams to take on, and I do anticipate that most of these four, if not all four of them, will be coming to a majority of our games. And despite the dual dragon that we do provide on our team, we have one of the best fairy resistances in the entire game, being Volcanion, which is one of the few fairy resistances that also is actually a shockingly good check to Flutter Mane, due to the fact that it has a lot of physical ways to hit Flutter Mane for really good damage. Coming in at round 5 though, I did want to get some Tailwind support, so we got Shanyun, our Tornadus Therian, and Tornadus overall is a really strong pick on this team. It's a base 121 speed tier, so again, it's at that awkward benchmark, just like with Alolan Ninetales, where it's just creeping any 120 Pokemon, and it has a lot of useful moves. Now, for anyone who's a fan of the second channel, you know I actually bashed on this Pokemon quite a bit for its role in VGC, but in VGC Draft, this is a whole different nightmare. With Regenerator, this could be a shockingly good pivot that can consistently get up Tailwind for your team, and when you only have to worry about a couple different Prankster Tailwind Pokemon in the entire draft, this becomes a surprisingly fast Tailwind setter for you. This also has some incredible support like Icy Wind, so in case of Alolan Ninetales is a little bit too slow to get that speed control off, it's okay because Tornadus Therian will be more than capable of it. It's also a really strong Nasty Plot win con with options like Bleak Wind Storm and Heat Wave for really good spread moves, and it's a pretty strong Terra user too, considering it has some decent offenses. I think Tornadus Therian will be a really surprising Pokemon for a lot of people who either just watch VGC or just watch singles, because I feel like it's going to play very differently than a lot of the format that you would actually be seeing it in otherwise for both Standard or Draft League, and I hope that I can show it off to its true potential, because I think that especially with the Alolan Ninetales as Veil support, this is going to be a really good win con for us. For round 6, I did want to make sure that we got another really good means of handling Trick Room, because while Raging Bolt and Volcanion are on the slower end, they're really fast for Trick Room setters, so I did want to go with Noelle, our Conkeldurr here. Now, Conkeldurr hits a base 45 speed tier, which is really good for trying to underpace a lot of Trick Room threats. If you think of anything that you've seen on Trick Room in just standard VGC, things like Iron Hands, Kingambit, Ursaluna, this underpaces all of them. So this is a very phenomenal wall breaker for your team, and with the strong fighting typing, this can pack a punch. Not only this, but it gets incredible ways of handling a lot of different fighting resistances, such as Knockoff, which is great for Psychic and Ghost types, and even just Facade, which is a really strong Terra normal option into most threats thanks to its ability Guts. Conkeldurr also gives us some much more consistent priority than Raging Bolt's Thunderclap with the move Mach Punch, and it should overall just be a fantastic wall breaker that should be able to shatter most opponents. Up next, I needed some fake out support, so we got Dory the Tinkaton. With Mold Breaker, this can get past a lot of the anti-priority options, such as Furgraph, for example, by just ensuring that we can land our fake out, and they'll be required to force themselves to run Ability Shield if they do want to actually block this, which, if they're committing an Ice Slot to that, that's very useful for me. Not only this, but Tinkaton has an incredible speed tier at base 94, which is really nice with a lot of the support we have. ST Tinkaton is pretty cool in draft, but it also has a lot of good supporting moves such as Encore, and this should be able to enable a lot of our other offense to win. I think Tinkaton is a very good Swiss Army knife for our team, and I think a lot of opponents are going to struggle to have to figure out what moveset we're running, because if they predict wrong, they're kind of screwed. We had to get some budget picks for our last 3, as we had 8 points combined for 2 to 3 Pokemon, so I got Yanfei, our Stantler, which provides us a really surprisingly bulky Trick Room setter. Not only this, but with the pure normal typing, this is able to sponge a lot of hits from different Ghost types, as I had no actual switch into Ghosts, and while I do have options like, for example, Volcanion that handle 2 of the best ones like Goldango and Flutter Mane, at the same time though, this is Draft League and I can't just rely on Volcanion to take all those hits, and I don't want to be forced in situations where I'm required to run Terra Normal Arc Dark on one of my better offensive pieces. So instead, we have Yanfei, our Stantler. This also gives us a good Intimidate piece, forcing Clear Amulet onto matchups that Stantler could actually come to, or if they don't prep for Stantler, then it's a good litmus test for what they're actually going to be handling in games 1, 2, and 3. And overall, I think this thing has some really decent supportive moves that are going to put a lot of pressure on opponents. I don't really think this is going to come to too many games, but for 2 points, it was a really strong Trick Room setter, and I'm pretty okay with that. I think it does the job it needs to well, and that's really all I can ask of it. For round 9, we got one of my absolute favorite Pokemon of all time. It's in my absolute top 5 for the entire game Pokedex of just any single game overall. We got Ganyu, our Glaceon. Now, when I was looking at picks and I realized we were down to like round 5 and we already had about 30 points left, I was looking at Glaceon immediately. I'm sure a lot of people expected me to get Articuno on this draft, but with Tornadus, I didn't really think I needed another flying type, as my team isn't very weak to ground anyway, and I have a lot of means of offensively handling it as well. With Glaceon though, this costs 3 points, which in comparison to Articuno costing 8, I feel like this is a much better value pick for our draft, especially considering we got such a top heavy set of mons. With Glaceon, we have 130 offense for our special attack, which is a lot stronger than Articuno as well, and we still do get the Snow Cloak Bright Powder shenanigans if we choose to do that. Glaceon is an incredible Terra candidate, and I do feel like a lot of people are going to be sleeping on just how much this thing can pack a punch. I've already started looking at a few matchups, and Glaceon is probably going to come to, I would argue, nearly half our games. It's that good of a special attacker, and I think a lot of people will be surprised just how much this thing can do, especially when they suddenly get frozen and get 2 KO'd by Blizzard, so they don't even have a chance to unthaw that easily. For our final pick of the team, though, I did want a couple different things. While I mentioned I didn't need the second ground immunity from Articuno necessarily, I did want to at least get a ground resist that wasn't going to be weak to a move like Rock Slide. I also wanted a really good offensive Ghost type, as I felt like it could be useful overall, as Ghost is one of the best offensive typings in the game, and I figured another Trick Room setter might not necessarily hurt. So when I was looking through my picks for rounds 8 through 10, I saw a mon that checked a lot of the boxes, and I felt like overall Trevenant, aka Nahida, should be a very valuable piece here. Now, Trevenant has a lot of things that could be very useful. For one, it has the ability Frisk, which in Draft League is a great way to scout items. Since we're not playing in full open team sheet, just open Terra sheet, this means that a lot of the items are going to be hidden, so I can actually scout and make sure that certain things are going to be safe for us to actually hit, whether they're using things like resistance berries, weakness policy, ability shield if I'm trying to fake out something with Tinkaton, etc. The sky is truly the limit there, and overall this Trevenant will help a lot with scouting in particular. But that doesn't end where Trevenant ends up being viable, as it's an incredible harvest pick, with Harvest Citrus Berry sets being a phenomenal way for this to keep some surprisingly good sustain. Trevenant is a kind of bulky Pokemon, but it isn't exactly going to be walling through everything, and having that Harvest Citrus Berry will help it at least get some good longevity to be a good offensive and defensive piece in Trick Room. Not only this, but Trevenant has a very strong offensive typing, with Grass and Ghost being a strong way to hit a lot of Pokemon for really good offensive damage, as there aren't a lot of common resistances that these two types actually share. With good support moves such as Will-O-Wisp as well, this takes a lot of the reliance of having to run a move like that on Volcanion, or even just Steam Eruption on Volcanion in general, to make sure that Trevenant can just get a consistent burn on an opponent without needing to limit the offense that Pokemon might do. Overall, I think that Trevenant fits a very niche role in this team, but I think the role it does provide is going to be very much so useful, and I'm really interested to see how this team performs. I personally think we have one of the best drafts in the league, and I'm really curious to see how that holds up, as we have a lot of strong draft league talent, as well as a lot of strong VGC talent in this league. And while I think that I am not exactly the most well-versed in either format this generation, I do think that I at least will be able to stand a chance with a draft like this. If you guys want to support the Liyue Harbor Glaze Lilligants, make sure to click the link down below to the SPL server and claim our role. It's a great way to stay up to date on the content that we're going to be providing, and it's also a great way to show that you guys want to support the team. If you guys enjoy this content and want to see more like it, of course, like and subscribe. We have our first week going up next week against Emil, who is a phenomenal singles draft league player, and I'm very interested to see how that match goes. With that said, I'm looking forward to seeing how this season performs for us, and I will see you guys in our next video. Until then, peace out, guys.